Atlantis, the mythical island, has captivated the collective imagination for millennia. According to Plato, this island and its civilization were destroyed in one night and one day. An unprecedented natural disaster destroyed the entire Atlantean Empire and its capital. From ancient times until today, it has been debated whether the story was fiction or if it was just a myth. In this documentary, we will analyze if Atlantis could have existed and the various theories about its possible location. We will show other historical civilizations that collapsed, whose wonders still persist. We will explore cities that were believed to be mythical, but that ended up being discovered. In addition, we will talk about legendary lost cities, like El Dorado, that have been searched for centuries. Plato, a Greek philosopher who lived between 427 and 347 BC, is the main source of information about Atlantis. This is a mythical island that, according to the philosopher, sheltered a powerful and very advanced civilization and army. He talks about her in two of his dialogues, Timaeus and Critias. In these texts, Plato touches on philosophical themes about the ideal society, power, and politics, and uses Atlantis as a kind of metaphor. In the dialogues, he presents the history of Atlantis, and he does so through Critias, who recounts what was supposedly told to his grandfather. The story would have reached ancient Greece through the Athenian Solon, who in turn heard it in Egypt. Atlantis would have existed 9,000 years before ancient Athens. According to Plato, it was an island much larger than Libya and Asia Minor combined. It was located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, the name that the Greece gave to two promontories that flanked the Strait of Gibraltar at the entrance to the Mediterranean Sea. Furthermore, the island had a society whose political, cultural, and technological organization was very advanced. It had lush vegetation, fertile lands, numerous animals, and great natural wealth. On the other hand, Plato mentions a metal, orichalcum, which current scientists and historians believe was a copper alloy, very valuable to them. Its capital would be a splendid city with majestic palaces and temples, surrounded by concentric rings of water and land, forming a defense between natural and artificial. There was a temple dedicated to Poseidon, who was the sea god revered by the Atlanteans. A huge golden statue of the god was displayed in the temple. According to Plato, the inhabitants of Atlantis were descendants of Poseidon and Cleitus, a mortal woman who would be the mother of the Atlantes and the race. These inhabitants were noble and generous, with great power. For many generations they maintained ethics and respect for the laws and their gods, which allowed them to prosper. But over time, the teen Atlanteans began to experience moral decline, as their greed and ambition became their ideals. Precisely this moral decadence is the most important thing for Plato, who uses it to explain that ethics is fundamental to maintaining a just society. The ambition of the Atlanteans led them to want to conquer the world, including Athens, and in this war the Greek city would emerge victorious. Thus Plato explained that Athenian moral and military superiority was the indispensable factor in victory. The philosopher idealized Athens because for him it was an ethically impeccable and superior city. In this way the gods punished Atlantis with its absolute destruction. Plato says that it disappeared in a day and a night of horror. With this he wanted to exemplify that arrogance, moral corruption, and uncontrolled power are punished with complete destruction. From then on, Atlantis became the symbol of the dangers of ambition that threaten humanity, susceptible to disappearing from one day to the next. and although there is no physical proof of its existence, many have tried to search for it. Most historians and scientists agree that this island was an invention of Plato, who used it as a fable to illustrate his philosophical proposals. However, as will be shown later, ruins that have been associated with Atlantis have been found in various parts of the world, and also archaeological remains of surprising civilizations, which have aroused the same fascination as the Atlanteans. Plato comments in Timaeus and Critias that Atlantis had an advanced culture and technology. Based on what was written by the Greek philosopher, various technical aspects of that civilization capable of managing its natural resources can be mentioned. The first thing that jumps out is water management. Atlantis was structured by walled concentric rings of land and water. It is logical to think that they had advanced hydraulic technology. They had complex systems of aqueducts and canals connected to each other and to the sea. Not only did they serve as transportation routes for people and goods, they also allowed the irrigation and maintenance of extensive agricultural areas. They had great knowledge about mining and metallurgy. The repeated mention of orichalcum suggests that the Atlanteans used advanced extraction techniques. Orichalcum was a mythical metal, much more valuable to them than gold. Plato expressly says in Critias that it was extracted from the earth in many places on the island. With it they decorated buildings and made various pieces. Plato also mentions the extraordinary fertility of the Atlantean lands, which could indicate that they developed agricultural technologies to maximize resources. On the other hand, the same urban layout highlights the capacity of Atlantis to defend itself militarily. The water rings functioned as barriers, and towers and checkpoints were built on the land rings. So it was not possible for a boat to wander through the canals without being seen. All this, according to Plato, allowed the Atlanteans develop a politically and culturally advanced society. The most speculative theories suggest that the Atlanteans possessed advanced technology for energy generation. It has been theorized that they used crystals in advanced ways, perhaps as energy sources or for other technological purposes. However, there is no archaeological evidence to support the existence of these latter theories. This enormous and advanced civilization functioned politically under a confederation system. This means that the Atlantean kingdoms were to a certain extent autonomous, but were governed by common laws. The main rules referred to certain behaviors that the kings had to follow. For example, not attacking each other, supporting each other, or making decisions by consensus, especially those related to war. Thus, every 5 or 6 years, a meeting of all the Atlantean kings was held, and it was judged who had failed to fulfill their commitments.